head, slowing down and making no time. I gotta keep it rolling. Those windshield wipers snapping out the tempo, playing perfect rhythm with the song on the radio. I gotta keep it rolling.
What's up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to the Rideshare Rodeo audio podcast. And this one's going to be a little different today because yesterday's podcast was based on the road show that I'm looking at and in Durango. And I know that to the audio podcast listeners, I know I had said we were going to discuss two things last week, and then I did the road show and I didn't get back around to that. I was going to push it till next week, but this will just be a short podcast. Also, audio podcast people, I've got you over here. What I'm going to do is roll through an intro, and then we're going to get into the two stories. I am also live streaming this on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook on the group. But as soon as the two topics end, I will cut it on the other lives, and I will move over to your chat, because already it's starting to go, and you guys know, and this is that's why I decided to put this all together too, because there's a lot of people who aren't in on the audio podcast yet. You should be. Just hit me up, steve@ridesharerodeo.com, and I will tell you how to get involved. It's free. There's no charge. Everything. In fact, let's address that real quick. So everything Rideshare Rodeo, and I learned this the hard way. If I put out long form on YouTube, let's say, is considered 8 to 15 minutes or something like that. So each platform likes something different. When I started on all the platforms, I just went and I came from the audio podcast. I had already been doing it for a year. And then I started on the other socials, and I just was trying to do that hour 15, hour and a half podcast. And those, what I call super long form now, just weren't grabbing on the other platforms. And part of it is because when you're not live on, like, let's say YouTube, because it's probably the second biggest platform to the audio podcast, which, again, thank you for making us #1 downloaded gig economy podcast in the world, for according to Good Pods in 2024. We'll see what happens in 2025. It doesn't happen until the October where they announce it. So we'll see. But still, numbers are looking good. But what I had to learn the hard way, and hopefully this helps some of you who are either audio podcasters or whatnot, and don't know this. Some of you will already know it, but you also have to learn not only your niche. The audio podcast is great because you can just say anything you want, unfiltered. Nothing gets hit. Nothing gets a strike. Nothing gets you in trouble. Nothing gets taken down. Even like on TikTok, it does. But so I can just cut loose on this. And that's what I was used to when I went to the others. I had to learn the hard way that the long form lives, once they ended, they don't get pushed out to your subscriber base. Maybe to your subscriber base, they'll see it, but YouTube is very much, they'll push it when it's live, but they won't push a live after it's live. So I'm better off doing the audio podcast and then cutting it into 2 or 3 segments to put out on TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, although we are live on Twitter right now. What's up, Twitter people? And YouTube. But they all wanted a little different, right? Like TikTok used to want 15-second videos only. Okay, so I had a little fun with that in the beginning. Then then TikTok started allowing longer, and people were doing longer, so it became a little more norm. Then TikTok started allowing half-hour videos, and you could go live for as long as you want. So these all changed. But like YouTube likes what I was calling a long form from before, 8 to 12 minutes. So it's not like it actually works with the podcast and the way I roll it out, because I usually cover 3 to 4 topics per episode, and therefore each one of those can just be its own YouTube video. And I've learned that, yes, I get that out to a larger number of people if I do cut it up. Again, it's not the amount of people that some of these channels, excuse me, guys. Some of these channels that just literally, clickbait till the day's end. I just can't do that. I do try. I mean, even a headline of a news article is somewhat clickbait. We could all debate this, but it's supposed to bring you in. Some of the best ways of doing, or some of the craziest and best ways I know that work for newspaper. This is for legacy media, like newspaper print, is to make the headline somewhat confusing, so you can't tell if you're on this side or that side of it. If you can make your headline read that, then you're going to bring everybody in, because you're going to bring in both sides. Not if they can tell, oh, this is slanted this way, I don't believe that, I believe this, they're not going to read it. So you got to bring them in. But I think this led to too many bad actors in the YouTube space and other spaces, where people are like, well, yeah, that's what you do, you clickbait them in. No, you don't clickbait them in. And I guess what I should say to that is, get creative with your words. I mean, hell, Chat GPT for like YouTube creators, just stop putting, at least my personal advice, because a lot of people might say, hey man, my channel's bigger than yours. And okay, fine. That's not my point. My point is, get a little cleaner about it, because once your audience watches you for a while, it'll start upsetting them that you're putting out videos that they can go, wait, you put that out last month, that was the headline of a video. So I mean, even though you might be talking about something the same, just a piece of advice to you, go to Chat GPT. There's some other ones out there too that are even better, but Chat GPT is great for this. Go to chatgpt.com and say, hey, I was going to title my video this on YouTube, the video is about this, and then put a little sentence description and say, can you give me 3 options for a better title? I guarantee you all 3, or one of them for sure, but all 3 probably will be better than the one you came up with, and it'll make more sense. So just try it if you want. If you don't, I don't care. I'm just trying to help you and also help the community of viewers. I don't want the community watching one channel all the time and then realizing this person's full of it, I'm going to go over here. Oh, wait, they're full of it too. No, you got to read the room. Most channels aren't really okay, like this channel, a lot of legislation, right? There's a lot to talk about. I don't know another gig space channel that knows the legislation like we talk about here. And mostly that's because of the audio podcast listeners, because all you guys do. And please comment on any social platform you're watching on. It helps more people see it. So please do. But I want to point out that these people on the audio podcast, if I'm doing it live, they can put them in the live comments. And it's a bad thing if I miss their comments, because they will email me. And their emails, for those of you on other platforms, are very long, but they're great. I mean, they have a lot of things to say. But let me just kind of wrap it all up for you real quick, since we hit on the topic. You can find Rideshare Rodeo audio podcast. Everything is here for free. Everything is here, uncut, unfiltered, free. RideshareRodeo.com. Wait, do I have a banner since I'm doing this on the other? Yes, I do. RideshareRodeo.com. Boop, boop. On there, you can download, you can play right from there for free. Everything podcast wise, uncut, blah, blah, blah. Or you can go to Spotify, Apple, iHeart Radio, Pandora, Amazon Music, any pod player in the world, you can find it for free as well. And that's all of the podcasts. The only thing that doesn't go on the podcast, and it's because the audio people just never clicked with it. I think they liked the idea, but it was not getting put, same as all the platforms. It wasn't getting pushed out because it was too short, was 13. So I do know a lot. I have a handful of podcast people who are like, bring back the 13. But I mean, for the most part, the times I've tried it, audio podcast listeners, it's just because it's 13 minutes or less. The podcasting platforms just are like, what is this? This is not your normal thing. We don't like this. We need it to be like an hour at least, or near there. But maybe I was starting to think maybe I could do something. It might be a little dated, but I was thinking I could probably at the end of every month put out a bonus podcast, not a podcast episode number, but a bonus podcast that is the 4 13s that happened that month in one. So it's an hour. I'm going to try it. We'll see. I'll put them out at the end. So like at the end of July here, I'll put out the 4 13s that will have happened onto the audio podcast. But so, okay. social media content is, and then so I cut it into pieces for what works best on what platforms. Like TikTok loves 13 now, and I can put a minute video out on TikTok and doesn't love it. Twitter likes me to be live or me to be in discussion with a lot of the people that I bring onto the podcast here, and that we have some groups and stuff that we talk about a lot of things on there. And Facebook is whatever Facebook is. We have a good sized group on there. I've made some people some mods. Shout out to NGB in Seattle. He was my first mod on Facebook because, and I told him, I said, dude, I hate Facebook. And I saw him on there all the time. So I was like, do you mind do you mind if I made you a mod? And he was like, no, man, happy to be. Thanks. So shout out to NGB for doing that. But so you kind of pick your poison. If you go to ridesharerodeo.com, you'll see that, you can pick your pod player, you can pick, go to YouTube, other social. So that's maybe a good jumping point, or you're watching on whatever platform this is right now. And yeah, I mean, you might just be liking that. So I do cut it up into pieces as I do. Let's see, what else did I want to say? So I had a little bit of a health scare, but I'm at the moment, I really don't have anything more to say about it. Let's just all think good things, and yeah, don't go over the top too crazy. It's just I did put it out on my personal Facebook page, and it seemed to cause a lot of concern when really I was just looking for some good energy to be sent. So again, I just wanted you guys to know that, but look at me, I'm doing okay. So it's just if any of you have ever been through the medical system recently, I think you'll know the trials and tribulations at this point are becoming more frustrating than anything else, because it's very hard to get through when they're always, I feel like doctors these days just try and kick you to whoever they can, even if like they're just like, dude, I don't want to, you need a specialist in this, and you need a special, who knows what this is, let's look into this. Like, I'm just like, I thought we were like at the top of our game in medicine, and yet no doctor ever can handle whatever you need to do. They always need to kick you to somebody else. I feel like the entire world, for those of you that have ever been with Kaiser, you'll get this joke. I feel like all medical services in the United States are now what Kaiser is. Oh, we need to get you upstairs. Anyway, I will keep everybody updated, and it's not anything anybody needs to worry about. I'll keep you updated. I'm just putting it out there because even a lot of the people on YouTube who know me on Facebook and stuff have texting me, whatnot, concerned. I just got to get through some things. And I'm going through a shit ton right now because, as you guys know, my son starts college August 18th. So yeah, there's that. We have to get moved out of this house. There's so much going on. Who knows, that maybe just everything isn't the essence of stress. And yes, I see all the audio podcast people going, let's get to the stories. And by the way, guys, remember, when I'm going to kill this, I will come over to the audio, and you guys are getting the full attention. I just thought that this should be streamed. It's a late night thing. It's not a normal time planned, but I want you guys on all the other platforms to know we're doing this because these two stories are two extremely important stories. And I did tell the audio podcasters last week that we would get into them, and they kind of gave me a hella hard time. So, and I mean that with the sincerest, nicest way possible. Ooh, there's a storm outside. But okay, so here's what we're going to get into first. So here we go. Let's pick one of the two topics. I hope that made sense on how these platforms work. That's really why, I mean, at this point I could even cut this, because that's really what I wanted to get across to all the platforms, is that each one offers something a little different. YouTube is probably the secondary, is what I would say before we get into these. And that one, there is an option to be a member on there. But what I would remind everybody, because occasionally I get asked, like, dude, there's a lot of bad players and channels who have members, and maybe you shouldn't have one. Well, maybe I should. Some of my members are great. I don't have a ton. YouTube is not a primary income source of mine. So My members thing is to make sure that I can have discussions with those people. Also, those people get to listen to the audio podcast as I record it live in session on my pod player platform on Mondays before it populates on Tuesday. So there's that perk. But really, it's just about nothing more than, I mean, really at this point, if you guys understand how lucrative that actually all falls, and you look at my numbers, you'd be able to do it in your head. It's nothing more than a little bit of support, but it is not at all expected. And that's why I said right here, all you guys need is this. I mean, you might be watching on YouTube or TikTok or Facebook or Twitter or whatever, but really all in the end, all you need is this. If you think you missed something, or if you want to comment to me that like, dude, nothing should be members. Part of the reason on YouTube a lot is members is because I did these live streams with, some of them are 4, 5, 8 hours long. Of course I made those members. There's over 650 members videos on my YouTube page because I don't want people searching for the content I want them to find and finding 7-hour videos of me live streaming. We've all had a great interaction when I am able to do it, and those of you on the platforms that engage that. But that shouldn't, again, after learning that the chopped up pieces are the ones that get seen, I don't think it was helping me to have 8-hour long videos out there after the fact. So I do make those members only as soon as they end. That way they're not stuffing my thing to make people think, oh, man, look how long all this stuff is. But anyway, I just wanted to put it out there. Again, all you need is this website. If you go to ridesharerodeo.com, you can find anything and you will make sure you have missed nothing except for 13. But 13 you can find on every platform anyway. It's always public. Everything's really always public. So to any members on anything, I appreciate the hell out of you. You guys are the best, even on the audio podcast, the channel members and whatnot. You guys are all the best. But everybody that watches is all the best. All of you the ones who like and comment, you are the best of the best of the best. That's what I really want. I want interaction, especially with everything we're going through right now. So let's talk about these stories. So the first one, okay, if you guys aren't familiar, Uber is suing Doordash, and it's a big lawsuit. We talked about this a while back, but Doordash challenged the lawsuit in California and said that, you know, this can't happen. We need it just to be, they didn't even want they didn't want any kind of like extension. They just wanted it dismissed. And the California judge struck down the bulk of the objections. In fact, I think there were 6 total objections. And yeah, okay, so here we go. So Uber's lawsuit against Doordash over delivery contracts will continue after a judge struck down Doordash's motion to dismiss the case. The California Superior Court judge on Friday gave the case the green light, ruling that 5 of Doordash's 6 objections did not pass legal muster. On the one objection that was sustained, the court is giving Uber a chance to revise its argument while moving ahead with the rest of its case. You guys are going to see why here in a second, because this, if you don't remember this case or you've somehow forgotten about it, this is a big, big deal. In fact, it goes to just so much of the nastiness that we see, and this is at its core. So let's talk. So Uber sued Doordash in February, okay, of 2025, alleging that its chief rival, Doordash, uses illegal tactics to get restaurants to sign exclusive contracts for first-party delivery. Remember this? Let's talk about it. It cited testimony from more than a dozen restaurant brands that said they canceled deals with Uber after Doordash threatened them with higher rates or straight up penalties. Penalties, basically, if they had to line item it, we all know it would read something else, but higher rates or penalties. Basically, those penalties would be like, you're using Uber as well. To me, a restaurant owner. The balls on these companies, man. So that's what the lawsuit is about. It's Uber saying, hey, they're telling customers that, you know, most restaurants use both, right? Some don't, but most do. But they were going to customers and going, if you use Uber Eats, we won't allow you on DoorDash. Seriously? Right off, dude. And you lobbyists and DoorDash people watching, you heard me. You heard me right. You know what? All it needs is just getting it public. So I'm going to be focused on that a little bit too here, making sure that we get this refocused because, yeah, it's been stewing in the audio podcast land for a minute with my people, but now everybody's getting like pissed off and loud again. So here we go. And I mean after today. So there's way more coming on this. We're going to really nail it to them. And again, Uber Eats isn't like a saint. They don't have a halo over their head. So I'm not trying to side with Uber Eats. I just think that's some pretty shady, disgusting business ethics. And to think you could go to restaurants and this wouldn't get out eventually is idiotic. I don't know what you guys were thinking. Of course this would get out. So DoorDash and Uber Eats are the first and second largest restaurant delivery services in the United States, respectively. And DoorDash dominates the market for first-party delivery. Now, that has changed over time. Uber Eats has gained a little more foothold while DoorDash has lost a little bit, but both have lost more volume than that little gain counted anyway. So while you're watching that little gain, both lost so much volume. It's just kind of weird. We're waiting for it all to shake out anyway. So DoorDash dominates the market for first-party delivery, which refers to delivery orders that are placed directly through a restaurant's website or app and fulfilled by third-party couriers. According to the lawsuit, more than 90 of the 100 largest U.S. restaurant brands have exclusive or preferred first-party delivery contracts with DoorDash. Now, realize that means it's already happening. They already got to that many companies and said, if you use Uber Eats, we won't even let you use us. Not like we're going to charge you more, although that is one of the options they say. But they're saying, we'll take you off the DoorDash platform. So think about it from the restaurant's point of view. I don't see as much Uber Eats volume. I know some places, for instance, and let me give you an example of one place in particular in my city I know of that has Uber Eats and DoorDash both there. I don't know what their deal is, like how the deal works because all the deals work different with the restaurants. But I do know from the owner that he leaves Uber Eats unplugged unless, and if DoorDash is slow ever, he plugs it in. He's told me a lot of stories about like multiple orders coming through for the same order, issues with response, all this. He's basically said it's the backup, but he has that ability. But they're saying that DoorDash has gone to their customers and said, listen, we won't let you use the DoorDash platform, and we'll promote all of the businesses on your block except you. I mean, am I wrong, or is this complete gangster style? And I'm not talking about in a cool movie way. I'm talking about, is this like complete gangster BS? In its April motion, DoorDash argued that Uber's case lacked details and other elements to support claims that it had violated antitrust laws. But a judge ruled that Uber's argument is strong enough to move forward to the discovery phase in which the two sides will exchange evidence ahead of the trial. I got to tell you guys, the audio podcast people probably know this, and maybe even some of you do on whatever platform you might be watching on. But we talked about this before, and I've seen a lot of the evidence already. And I mean, I'm not even a judge. When a judge sees what I've seen, they're going to know exactly what was done. I mean, I've seen professional letterhead stuff written from DoorDash to the restaurant. So there's libel, there's slander, there's antitrust matters. I mean, just you name it. They've done everything wrong. The FTC also, let's not forget, is currently suing DoorDash for $1 billion. They're also being sued by a bunch of other places. They're being sued by the Canadian FTC for a bunch of money for scamming. They're being caught in every market, and even the markets that hadn't sued yet. Like I said, if you work for DoorDash between 2017 and end of 2019 in any city in the US, make sure your city has already sued DoorDash. Only about 5 or 6 have. They're all big cities. California sued them twice. Chicago sued them, got a ton of money. There's other cities suing. But make sure your city does too. As I talk to lawmakers, I make sure that they know this too. That hey, between those years, they were stealing the tips, and here's how. We have a whole packet. I can show you, kind of thing. But so after the two sides exchange the evidence, so here's a quote from Uber. "We're pleased the court saw through this attempt to hide from the facts and dodge accountability," an Uber spokesman said in the statement. "Restaurants rely on Uber Eats to grow their businesses with transparency." First of all, Uber, how dare you? In a point where I understand your lawsuit, you just lost me by using my main keyword, transparency, because neither of you guys are transparent. So Uber, you should have just left that out, because that word is becoming such an emboldened word right now with all of the communities I'm in. And that's what I've been pushing as a word for a while, that I hate to say this, but until you guys are going to be transparent, you might want to take it out of your quotes that you give to these papers, because I've even talked to some of the publications about our view on the transparency. So when some writers even hear it, they're like, "Yeah, right." Like, they know. Lawmakers now know. So, it's probably not a word you should use. I don't mean to be giving you advice, but since you're watching, there it is. But restaurants rely on Uber Eats to grow their businesses with transparency and freedom of choice. And they know that being forced into unfair terms or threatened with retaliation isn't competition. It's coercion. We look forward to putting DoorDash's tactics on trial. That's the quote from Uber. So that's where we're at with that one. I'm interested to know how all of you guys in this world feel. I see the comments coming in on the audio podcast. And if you're joining the audio podcast live, again, I know I'm live at an odd time. I'm making up for the two stories that you guys wanted to know. And that was one. I see all your stuff coming in. For those of you over here, we got one more story, and then I'll cut it off. And then audio podcast people, you have my attention. Excuse me. Oh, and before I get into this second topic, I do want to know, anybody, whatever platform you're watching on, I'm curious if anybody has tried Starlink for internet. I know that's a totally separate issue. I'm just curious if anybody is using Starlink and what they think of it. Just curious. It's for my own. I like to put, there's a lot of you that comment and stuff on all the platforms where I like to read your comments, and because I feel like I know a lot of you, and I do know I've met in person many of you, but I feel like I know a lot of you that I even haven't met in person, and I'd like to hear your take on it. Well, for me it sucks. For me it's great. It's just for me. Anyway. So we all know about Washington state legislation. Okay. We all know about Seattle's pay up legislation of what, $4 or whatever an order. And they were supposed to pay that on every order in Seattle. And then what did they do? Seattle City Council says you guys are going to pay $4. This is to DoorDash and whatnot. You're going to pay $4 per order for city congestion fees and things like this. But it really was going after them for not paying the drivers correctly. So what happened immediately? Most of you know. Hopefully most of you remember, but here it is. What happened immediately? DoorDash actually charged the customer $5 and called it or whatever they say. However they do it, they're saying, "Hey, here's that Seattle City Council fee. It's $5." And this is what John and I were having an issue with, because the city of Seattle is only making them pay $4. So not only are they passing that on to the customer, they're making $1 now, another $1 off a fee that was supposed to be imposed on the company. Come on, guys. Seriously, even if the whole amount is $5 and you're not making anything, for you to just pass that on to the customer is so wrong. And they put it as a line item. They put, "Here's your Seattle City Council delivery fee." And they worded it so that people would hopefully get mad at that. But that led them to also have to levy and raise prices on all of the restaurants. We talked about that chicken satay place that does the kebabs. And if you guys remember, a few months back, I had the person on from Seattle who was giving us an example of that place, and he actually loved it. He said, "I can go in there and get one for $6.50. These great kebabs." I guess there's 3 locations in Seattle of this restaurant. I can go in and get one for $6.50. He said on Doordash, each one individually, the menu item before any fees, anything is assessed, including the new city fee, this, that, the other, is $19. Are you kidding me? DoorDash. So you're taking a mom and pop's restaurant, because there's only 3 locations. It's not nationwide. It's not a corporation. They only have 3 locations in Seattle. And they make these great kebabs. People know about them all over. They're $6.50 at the location. You're charging $19 on the menu, then fees, then taxes, and then the city council fee. No wonder your customers have dropped to almost 75% volume that they were, which has hurt the restaurant, which has hurt the amount of drivers. I think you can all follow this process of where I'm going and why everybody got hurt in this mess. But and I can't make this up. So DoorDash is now slamming this Seattle over another issue, over driver deactivation law. And unfortunately, DoorDash has now said they will be adding another line fee to the customer to pay for the wrongful or rightful deactivation law. What are we seeing here? All stop fighting for minimum wage. Stop it. If you want 120% of minimum wage, go get any W-2 job, because all the ones I see around here are well over 120% of minimum wage. My McDonald's right here hires for $19 to $22 an hour. Right here down the street from me, $19 to $22 an hour. You don't use your car. It's McDonald's. Maybe that's not the job you want, but are you kidding me? That's like 170% of the, or that's like 180% of minimum wage. So if you're just looking for 120% of minimum wage, go get a W-2. They all pay 140, 150% anyway, but quit screwing around. This is not a joke anymore, guys. You want legislation that is transparency only. Otherwise, you end up with this Seattle mess. And let's get into that while I still have a little bit of a voice, since these audio people are dropping questions left and right. DoorDash is increasing delivery fees for customers in Seattle, citing what it calls extreme regulations passed by the city. So these line items in Seattle are getting ridiculous. So now you have the delivery fee, the taxes, the fees, you have the city council delivery thing, and now you're going to have this deactivation line fee too. People are going to, I mean, they're already not ordering as much, and now you're going to have to raise prices again. So the chicken kebab is going to become like what, $22? You guys are insane, dude. It's funny how none of us that do these apps use them. The only apps I ever use, and I won't use Lyft just because I've done it since 2014, and Uber, but I stopped doing Lyft just before the pandemic anyway, because the paid got so bad. I'm surprised Lyft is still around, but I still do use Uber rideshare when I need it because it's pretty cheap, and I always offer to pay the people. I always offer the driver, hey, what are you making? Especially now with transparency, I haven't got to use it as much, but hey, what are you making on this ride? And as long as they shoot me straight or even semi-straight, they're like, I'm making $16. And I know I was charged $35. I just say, hey, I'll cancel it right now and pay you $25. That way I'm showing them, like Jeff, I'm giving him a shout out, Jeff at Mic Drop Barbecue. To you audio podcast listeners, you don't know who that is. That's a YouTube channel at Mic Drop Barbecue. He talks about poaching the clients all the time. Get your own clients. Uber's there to set you up with, when you click with somebody, this is kind of this is my paraphrasing of Jeff. Like if you don't like somebody, obviously you don't want them as a client. So let that one go by. But the next Uber ride you get, and it's not paying so good, but you're clicking with the person, find out they live there or they come into town every so often, they need some rides while they're there. Boom, make that transaction happen. Make it so that they're your customer. He's basically telling you use it as a jumping platform to get your customers. So, back to the, but anyway, we don't use these platforms. Can you imagine using a platform in Seattle and doing this work and seeing all those line items? I mean, talk about the screw ups they make. I don't know how you would continue. I mean, it's just so mind boggling. And how like if you want to get 4 of these chicken kebabs, or I'm sorry, 5 of them, 5 of them in the restaurant would cost you $32.50. You'd walk out the door. 5 of them through the app would cost you $97.50 plus fees, plus taxes, plus Seattle's city council fee, plus this new deactivation fee. What's the driver getting? $3? And then that's the final screen, is the tip. No wonder tips are down. So consumers in Seattle will see higher service fees on all orders starting this month. To be clear, we are increasing some fees in an effort to continue delivering in the city. This is a quote from Doordash, a market in which Doordash operated a loss in 2024. It's not like it's the only market, Doordash. So don't make it sound like, hey, because of everything you've done, we had a loss. And I think that was their little plug on this newsletter, or on this article on GeekWire. That was their plug to the businesses, because the businesses have lost millions quarter over quarter since these city councils got passed along, since they raised prices. But anyway, the delivery giant, which reported $3 billion in revenue during the first quarter of this year, calls Seattle, quote unquote, the most expensive market to facilitate delivery in the United States. Who knew? I knew. Some of you knew. And by a wide margin too. DoorDash didn't say how much fees will increase. The move comes as a new driver deactivation law is implemented. Now, remember, this law was passed before, but now it's finally getting implemented. Some of these laws go, like, they get passed, and then they're like, well, the implementation date is 6 months out. That's how our transparency law worked here. You guys, I'm going to keep hitting on it. Transparency law, removal of driver metrics and full transparency, and boom, we're good to go. You're going to see still a lot of bad offers, but if they don't have any metrics on you and you're just allowed to take the ones that make sense to you, perfect. Be transparent. So the law originally passed by the Seattle City Council, the pay up legislation, which I was speaking about with the line item, was originally passed in August of 2023, which was designed to provide more, as they would say, job security for gig app workers. Please, those words in the same sentence just is no. Under the law, companies must give workers a 14-day. This is mind-boggling, you guys. Under the law, companies must give gig workers a 14-day notice of deactivation. Now, there is a clause in here that says, with the exception of certain misconduct, sexual, things like that might be so extreme that you would have to be. But basically, like, hey, you did a horrible job. You're fired in 14 days. The hell is that? I mean, to me, I almost even have to say, like, who passed this? Because you know what? That person is either going to fight a little bit for not to get out of that deactivation, or they're going to go balls to the wall and just trash your business for 2 weeks. So whoever passed this, I feel like this one was almost like just being mad at DoorDash. So they said, let's do this. That way everybody that's deactivated can just go nuts and thrash them for 2 weeks. So under the new law, companies must give workers a 14-day notice of deactivation, with exception of certain misconducts, base deactivations on reasonable policies, and provide workers with records behind their decision. Partial transparency, but a little too weird for me. The 14-day thing, and the fact that they've got all these fees and they've gotten all these ways that they pay the drivers. So once you involve pay, that's why I say transparency and removal of metrics. Anything beyond that, anything involving money, you might wonder why do these companies keep signing that one right into law? Because that's what they want. They love those. They love those, like, active time. You know what active time is? Active time is controlled by the app that you hate. I know, I see you guys blowing up the audio. I know you know. So the ordinance was supported by gig worker advocacy groups. Again, this is one of those examples where when people say, "Hey, man, you can't make a difference in the laws being presented," usually it's 10, 20, 30, 50 maybe people writing into the elected officials that they want something changed, and they usually represent under 1% of the drivers in the market. It's just that the other drivers are not taking the time to even do it. That's why I say your voice absolutely matters. I can show you how it has with me, and I can show you some of the other avenues. I'm working on other states for you guys right now. All I need is your help, and luckily I get help from a ton of you guys that email me from those states. Chicago and Illinois is a big one on our radar right now. First one we need to bust on is New Jersey. That one's trying to destroy all independent contractors. But let's get back to this real quick. The deactivation law applies to gig workers who deliver food, shop for groceries, and complete other tasks via on-demand app. It does not apply to rideshare. It's the only thing it doesn't apply to, but it applies to every other gig app. Uber and Instacart filed a lawsuit late last year to stop the enforcement of the law over constitutional concerns, among other allegations. A federal judge denied that effort in January and said they must, again, just like the last thing we talked about, must face their day in court. The law was effective starting in January, and its administrative rules or details implemented guidelines were effective June 24th. The city's Office of Labor Standards says it has received more than 150 worker inquiries since January. 150 people asking why they've been deactivated. That's it. So it's not like it's overload either. If you guys are like, damn, how do they keep up with it? Okay, so, I mean, that's it. It's not a lot. But basically, through ongoing outreach and education, the staff has reached thousands of gig workers and ensured they are aware of their right under Seattle's deactivation ordinance. OLS Director Stephen, I'm going to chop his name here, Marchesi, said in a statement, the efforts have proven to be effective as we continue to receive positive feedback from app-based workers in response to our support of the worker transparency due to process rights under this law. I got to tell you guys, I speak to a lot of people in the Seattle market, and that ain't what any driver has told me. Now, there was a little honeymoon period in the beginning of the new pay up and all that crap. But dude, I can tell you this, everybody I know in Seattle tells me the opposite. There's now only and again, if it helps make it so it's not oversaturation to such a degree, that's something else for another discussion. But they've now made it so that more than half of the people doing gig work, there is no gig work for them anymore. The businesses are losing money and they're doing less volume. Customers are having to pay 3 times as much. They said it's the highest paying market. And what does that mean? That means the supply and demand goes way off whack. And there already isn't a need for as many drivers in any market as there is, but that means there's really no need for that. I mean, so therefore you got a bunch of people who literally, I know people who turn on and don't see one order all day, live in Seattle. How is that even possible? How is that even possible? So like here in Colorado with the transparency laws, they're different, but companies are required to report certain records on a quarterly basis starting in June of 2027. So again, giving these companies a far out date like 2027 is like the people who say the end of the world is coming in 2027. And they're the same people who said the end of the world was coming in 2020, 2022, 2024, now 2027. It's one of those. It's just a moving target. So when you allow them, 2 more years of operating before that law, trust me, they won't obey that law and they will understand that your state is weak. So don't buy into this crap. Don't buy into anything with fees. If your state, if you even smell or hear or read an article, forward it to me, steve@ridesharerodeo.com. And if you're like, dude, what is this article? Even if you're confused about it, dude, I don't care. I've just spent a ton of time researching this, or this wouldn't be an area of expertise of mine. This wasn't like a chosen field. It was one that I just kept going down rabbit holes until I met a certain group of people who really expanded the knowledge and made me understand what the hell's going on. And now I apply it to all this stuff, and it all makes sense. So if you read an article that says, hey, we're, this legislation, you might send it to me and I might say, hey, that's kind of what Colorado's is. That's good. Let's get in touch with your lawmakers, or that's bad, or I'm not really certain. The language is too unclear. Let's get in touch with the lawmakers. I'll help you get in touch with them. You guys all know this, so just hit me up. Because the fight is now. The fight is now. I've told you guys the fight is now and next year, because by next November, many like this November, New Jersey, that's why it's a big one for us right now, and Virginia has a November election. Next year in November, a lot of states have an election. So anything trying to get kicked through is happening right now till then. So be on the lookout for what's going on in your state. I'm trying to be the watchdog and help out from afar, but I might not be. You might see something in a local paper that I might miss, or somebody didn't alert me to. And sometimes I have friends in other cities too that I would throw it to them because they actually know about what's going on with that stuff. And I might put you in touch with them, and they already have been doing the kind of research I've done in some states. So you might be talking to somebody else who is going to be like, dude, I know exactly what's up. And I wouldn't put anybody in touch with anybody unless I was sure they knew what they're talking about. Like, you're not going to hear me like refer a YouTube channel or something. Not going to happen. So the city will be able to investigate whether companies deactivated workers for a permissible reason. So Instacart, Uber, and Doordash were in a battle with Seattle lawmakers over a new minimum wage law last year. And the companies added new fees last year. And in its blog post Tuesday, Doordash said yesterday, the news of have reduced driver earnings. The new laws have reduced driver earnings and increased delivery delays. It said average monthly revenue per store fell 6%. That's pretty big too, by the way, if you don't know that, but you should. A year after the minimum wage law went into effect, it also cited an increase in fraud, citing a small number of drivers who allegedly prolonged deliveries to increase the pay. We all know about that. And since there's less drivers on, they're doing that kind of stuff. So you again, when you put money in it, because how everybody always says follow the money to get to the truth. So here's the truth of it. Keep the money out of it so that you can have some truth. And all of you on social media land, I am going to focus on a few minutes of comments from the audio podcast people, but I wanted to put this out there. Thank you for joining, and leave all your comments, questions, concerns below, and we'll see you next time here soon.